since we are almost at time, I'd like to start the session. I'd like to invite Engineer Lasantha, the Chairman of Mechanical Engineering Sectional Committee, to introduce our guest speaker today. Engineer Lasantha, you are on mute.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Dulani. You all welcome for the first session of our MECCAST session. The MECCAST is initiated by Mechanical Sectional Engineering Committee to bring various talks on topics that are of interest to engineers. So today is the first sessions. This will be done by Dr. Angika De Silva on innovations to market. So Dr. Angika De Silva is the head of nanotechnology at Sri Lanka Institute of Nanotechnology. He graduated from Monash University with the first degree in mechanical engineering and earned his PhD from the same university on polymer nanocomposite material designs and material designs. So you all welcome for the first sessions. This is over to you, Dr. Angika. I am Lasantha Ekanayaka, Chairman, Mechanical Engineering Sectional Committee. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lasantha, for having me for this first episode of MEC Talks. So I'm representing Sri Lanka Institute of Nanotechnology, and I'm heading the technology transfer division at Slintech. So like we have been involved with a lot of technologies, a lot of innovations, and we have done a lot of tech transfer work at Slintech. So I'm going to share my experience related to that. And so that's why we named the talk as innovations to market. So it's like, I would like to share the experience on like how to take innovations to the market, and also how to commercialize your research or how to commercialize your inventions from one point to another. So when you take about this entire journey from taking innovations from its birthplace to the end target, which is the commercialization. So it's actually a very hectic journey. So it's like a roller coaster ride. You will have lots of ups and downs. And at the end, like you will, once you achieve that target, so you will be flourish with a lot of joy. So once we go through this journey, like I'm not going to talk about like how to do the invention, because like one of the key aspects of this entire journey is to have the right invention. But since most of y'all are engineers and scientists and inventors, so I'm quite sure, so you know that game very well. So now once you come up with an invention, so you have to put lot of effort to come up with an invention which is quite suitable to the market. And then taking that invention to the commercialization would be like evenly difficult, or it's evenly harder. So now when you go through this journey from when you try to leapfrog from innovations to commercialization, typically there are two paths out of many pathways. Like there are two commonly practiced avenues. So one of the avenues, we call it as the entrepreneurial journey, or rather the startup journey. And the other part is where you secure your IPs, or the intellectual property, and then try to monetize this intellectual property. So I'll touch base on both of these avenues. So first we'll start with the entrepreneurial journey. So entrepreneurial journey is in fact not for everyone. So entrepreneurial journey is like for people who are really willing to put their heart and soul and mind and everything to that invention that they have done, and they will drive that project through to the end and ensure that the project will get commercialized. So when you go through the entrepreneurial journey, so it's like a typical journey where you set up a startup company, then like you may have to hire people to run the company, then you have to do marketing campaigns, then you have to come up with production facilities, you have to do the production, distribution channels, and then put the product to the market. But in order for you to do all these aspects, in order for you to have all these elements in place, you have to have money. So that's the critical part in this way. So in order to get money, like, or in order to raise funding, so you can go to investors and get the investments done. So in terms of raising investments, or in terms of raising funding, so there are a few ways of doing it. So say if you are like a very early stage startup company who's trying to come up with a prototype, who's trying to come up with an innovation. So usually we we call that stage as the pre-seed funding. So at the pre-seed funding, usually there are typically three type of people who will invest in you. So we call them as 3 Fs. Uh, so one F is for family, one is F for friends, the other F is for fools. So in the sense like your family and your friends, they might really believe in you, because if they know you very well, if you know that you are passionate, they will definitely like if they are capable of investing, then like they might give you some sort of an investment to get your prototype out to the market, and then later on they might get the return back. But so if you you are extremely lucky, you might find a total stranger who doesn't know you at all, but that person might be willing to invest in you. So that's why we call that F as the fool. So so you might go through this cycle to get the initial pre-seed funding, and once the pre-seed funding is done, then the next step would be to raise capital or raise funding for your other operations. So at this particular stage, then you can go to angel investors, or you can go to venture capitalists, and those are the type of investors who would put money or who would put funding behind your innovation to take it to the next stage. So when you engage with uh, VC firms, or rather venture capitalists, or with angel investors, the typical model is they will like fund your company. They will give a funding to your company, and in return they will take an equity from your company. So in that case, like you should be able to like value your company, and based on your company valuation, based on the contribution that they make, you can set aside a uh, certain equity to them. So that's like the entrepreneurial journey that you all of you may have heard of. So I'm going to touch based on a slightly different angle, which is the IP protection, and how to monetize your inventions through IP. And in this particular case, if you talk about IP, or rather the intellectual property, in if it's related to an invention, so most likely uh, it will be a patent, or it will be like an engineering design. So in this case, once you generate the intellectual property, or rather the IP, so you can commercialize this in a few different ways. So one of the ways would be through IP sale. So then you come up with a price tag for your IP, and then like you find an investor and you tell them, okay, you take my IP, and this is the IP value tag. And once you get that transaction done, you will transferring your entire intellectual property rights to the client. So once you do that, you won't have any intellectual property retained with you. So you can't claim on your IP anymore. But there's another avenue where you can focus on, which is called the licensing model. So in the licensing model, what you can do is you can keep your intellectual property with you, and then you can target different clients, and you can let them use your technology, but the intellectual property belongs to you. And in order uh, for using your technology, that client will pay you a royalty fee from the sales that they make. So when you do the licensing, there are two ways of doing that. One would be the exclusive based method. So based on the exclusivity, the other method is the non-exclusivity based method. So in the sense, like when you go through the exclusivity based method, you will find a partner and you will tell them, okay, I have a technology, you can use my technology and uh, do the commercialization work, do the production or whatever. But I won't give my technology to anyone else. So you are the only person that I'm providing it to. So the non-exclusive method is where that you engage with multiple entities, and you will allow those entities to use your technology. So when it comes to exclusive deals, the royalty that you could charge uh, would be like a premium. And when you go for like a non-exclusive deals, like you might not be able to charge a uh, premium royalty, because you will have multiple parties to involve with. Then now, why licensing model is better than IP sales? So it's actually a business decision that you all have to think of, like say, okay, if you need quick cash, if you want to sell off your IP, so that's totally fine. But then again, say if you are an inventor and if you think to do further modifications to your technology, and if you want to do different alterations in future, so it's always good to keep the IP with you, and then license it to someone else. So when you license it, actually there are a lot of benefits. Like for say, for example, you are a startup company and you want to get into, you are in a specific domain, but you come up with an invention and you want to get into different market segments where you can't get into. So in that case, what you can do is like you can license your technology to other people on a non-exclusivity basis, so in any other form, and you can get into different market segments. So if I give you an example, we all know there's a brand called Beats by Dr. Dre. So Beats by Dr. Dre, so it's a brand, or it's a company specialized in speakers. So what they did was like they were very dominant in the speakers market, but then again they partnered with computer companies like HP, and also mobile companies like HTC, to integrate their speaker technology to into mobiles and laptops. So through that, they got into a different market segment that they could never dreamt of. So which is the computer market segment, PC market segment, and the mobile market segment. So likewise, when you, if you can strategize properly, then like your licensing options could be very handy in that way, because like you can actually target different market segments and you can reach into different markets. And the other advantage is like say you come up with a technology, and like if you have to go through the startup route, as I said earlier, like you have to set up a company, you have to hire people, then you have to have the correct skill set to do the formulation, then like you like I mean formulation or whatever the invention, then you have to have a capital to put up a factory, then the production, marketing, distribution, and that whole gamut of things that you have to do. But imagine you come up with an invention and you have the license. So rather than you going through that entire startup life cycle, you engage with a company who's already in the market, and if you transfer the technology to them, like then your technology will go to the market at a very rapid phase. Like for example, like say I come up with a new formulation to make soap. So if I come up with a new formulation to make soap, and if I'm to put the product out to the market, then I have to go through that entire cycle of production to marketing to distribution to raising funding, and also that will take a lot of time. So instead of that, I can always reach out to a company who's already in that domain, who's already making soap, and I can tell them, okay, I have a formula. If you use my formula, you can sell it to the end users, and I will get a royalty out of the sales that you make. So it could be a minute percentage, but through that, like you can actually go to the market at a very rapid speed. So those are like the few advantages that you would get uh, by doing licensing over IP sales. Then the third method would be like going into joint ventures. So joint ventures in the sense like you come up with an IP and then you get involved an investor into your company. So essentially it's like another startup formation where you will have a company formed, and then you will be driving that entire joint venture to get the returns. Now, so we spoke a lot about like IP generation and the strategies that we can inculcate to monetize this IP. But the biggest question now is, okay, like we can come up with IPs, but how do we know the exact value of these IPs? So this is actually the biggest question that anyone would have. So it's like one of the inventor's dilemma, that because no one would know what's the exact IP value would be. But there are like basic tools that you can use. Like there are three methods. One would be like the cost-based method, in the sense like you can calculate the cost that you have incurred for your research work or your other R&D development work, and based on that, then you know the so you know the you know the cost that you have incurred, So once you know the cost, you can put a small markup for the cost, and then you can come up with an IP value. So the second option would be the market-based method. Market-based in the sense, you can always do some sort of a survey and see whether there are similar sort of transactions, similar sort of IP sales had happened in the past. So if so, then you can benchmark your IP value with that, and you can always negotiate based on that. Then the third method is the most lucrative method, and that's what we commonly adopt. So it's called the forecast based method. So in the forecast based method, what we do is like we forecast how much of revenue that we can make out of the IP that we have, and based on that we always tell, okay, our IP could be this much. So that's how you usually value your IP, and you come up with a price tag to your intellectual property. But having said that, ultimately it all boils down to uh, different companies buying capacity or the buying power. So like say you value your IP for $100 million or whatever, and at the end of the day, the company is willing to pay only $10 million. So then it's a different dialogue, and it's a different business negotiation that you have to do, and you have to settle that separately. So I think I covered quite a bit on this IP topic, like how to come up with and how to monetize your IP through different commercialization strategies, and like how to put a price tag to your IP and so on. So I don't want to make this like a standard lecture series. So I would like to now wrap up the session, and maybe we can move on to the Q&A session. Then like we can dive deep into different areas if you need any further clarification.
Thank you very much, Dr. Angika, for that very informative session. So this is the first MEC talk that was organized by the Mechanical Engineering Sectional Committee. So far, I have received several questions. So let me take up the first question. That is there a way to find foreign investors for a concept model online? If there is, what should be ready at my hand?
Foreign investors, in the sense, like there are few ways of doing that. So like if you look at the current trend, the usual trend is like you do a lot of social media campaigns, and you try to make your technology viral. So before you all do that, like you have to make sure your IP is protected, so through a patent or some other technique, or it could be like a trade secret or something. And then you can have like a viral campaign to make a buzz about it. So that's like a quick way of doing it, and that could be like the most low cost way of doing it. But then again, there are other agencies who would do the matchmaking. So there are, I can't name the company names, but if you like do a Google search, like you might find these companies called matching agencies, innovation matching agencies. So what they do is like they take your innovation and they put up on technology transfer platforms. So there are the platforms called online international technology transfer platforms. So they will post your technology saying there's a technology like this available, and if you are interested, you can reach out to the inventor. So in certain cases, there are these online platforms where they do it for free of charge, or else they might charge a small commission for doing the matchmaking. So once you get that part going on, the next step would be for the foreign investor to do the due diligence. Then they would get into more details about your company, about your invention, and they want to make sure that the things are in place, and then like the discussion will continue from there onwards.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Angika. There are some other questions, and if you want to directly ask the question from Dr. Angika, please raise your hand please raise your hand so that I will direct your question. And the next question that is been asked is, there are two types of innovations. One is to innovations that are introduced to solve a problem, and the other is that innovations that revolutionize the world or the a particular industry. So they're asking which is more successful, whether it's the innovations that are introduced to solve a certain problem, or the innovations that revolutionize the industry or the world.
Well, I don't think like you can draw a line between those two and say like which one is better than the other one. But what I can say is like when it comes to technology, so there are, rather than looking at it in that way, you can look at it in a different way. So there's another method called like market push and technology push and market pull. So like there are certain technologies, like whether you are resolving a problem or whether you are coming up with a disruptive technology, ultimately you might have to see whether this technology is something, whether is it something which is really required by the market, by the society. So like problem solving sort of questions or sort of innovations would be something like that. So the other one is like you come up with a technology and you have to push that technology to market, and you have to make an appetite among the market for them to grasp it. Like say for example, if you look at the first like Apple phones for example, so back then like there wasn't any market need as such, so it's a market need that they created, so that's why it's called like a technology push sort of an invention rather than the market pull.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Angika. I think Engineer Arjuna Manamperi is raising his hand. So, Engineer Arjuna, you can ask your question.
Good evening, Dr. Angika. This is Engineer Arjuna Manamperi, President-elect IESL.
Hi, Ms. Arjun.
How are you? Good. You look pretty good. And I was asking you to watch your hands because on Zoom, without the blue screen, your hand appears from outside like a ghost hand. That's why. Right. My question, Rangika, now in Sri Lanka, either through your organization, which is Syntech, right?
Slintech, Sri Lanka
Syntech,
Institute of Nanotechnology.
Yeah. Through that or any other place, if an entrepreneur is there, then let's say I want to make a gadget, some kind of a gadget. Are there any facilities available in Sri Lanka to make a prototype, in the sense that when I say prototype, it is not out of iron or wood or anything like that, but rapid prototype building? Where are the such services available?
So like say at Slintech, we have a program called Slintech Startup Engine. So we try to help entrepreneurs in the area of engineering or science. So in that, what we essentially do is like we allow them to come and use our lab space, and also use our equipment for like material characterization. So that's more on to like science and material science sort of. But for the rapid prototyping, to best of my knowledge, Nerd Institute, they are trying to build up a rapid prototyping arm at the moment, like a rapid prototyping center. And also there are certain incubators and accelerators in Sri Lanka who would direct you to those sort of facilities. So, but at Slintech, we don't have a rapid prototyping per se, but then again, like you have that ability or the luxury to come and use the lab facilities for scientific sort of work.
Thank you, Dr. Rangika. Dr. Dulani, take the cue from Dr. Rangika, because we should make a visit, and maybe with his permission, his staff's permission, if you do a video film or something like that, and people should know about this thing. One of the issues in Sri Lanka is that we don't know where the things are. Even the Nerd Center, I don't know how many of the audience will know how to even get there, because even if you know there, it is very difficult to get there. It's in the boondocks of the some mega jail area. I know it's very difficult. I always get lost. I have one more question, and then I will finish my question. Now,
Actually, Engineer Arjuna, if I may interrupt you,
yes.
Other than those institutes, I personally know, like including our Faculty of Engineering, we have rapid prototype machines in universities.
Right. So Dr. Dulani, through the Mechanical Engineering Section Committee, at least we should start a website or something where these things are, because people do not know. I know there are a lot of things. In Sri Lanka, people do not know where things are. That is the issue. Right?
Yes. Actually, NSF, National Science Foundation, has already put those information. I think they are collecting annually, and they actually publish them in their website. But the only thing is, people don't know that it's there. So we can.
Yeah, because National Science Foundation people are all geeks and they don't know how to market, to be very frank with you. Right? So everybody does something, but they don't know marketing. We are very poor marketeers of what we do. So I think Mechanical Engineering Section Committee can play a major role. I have one last question to Dr. Angika. Dr. Angika, now innovation comes in terms of soft side as well. For example, if I'm a great civil engineer with architectural and structural knowledge, how can a person like that capture a market in for overseas, like a more developed countries where he or she can showcase their skills in terms of structural work or anything like that?
So you're not referring to a specific innovation, right? You are talking about like how to showcase your expertise, is it?
Something like that, but innovative, right? I mean, good structure. Only in Sri Lanka, this division is there, structural engineers and architects and all that. But a great engineer will be both, right? I mean, it's innovative. Structures can be defined and designed. So how could you find such opportunities? Something similar to that. That's what I'm talking about.
So like say for personal branding and all, I think like there are platforms like LinkedIn and so on, but beyond that, I think there are certain membership programs that you can get into, like I'm not sure about the civil engineering domain, but like say in the nanotechnology domain, so there are certain membership programs, so you can get into those membership programs, and then like you get an opportunity to take part in conferences, like take part in networking sessions and so on. So in that way, like you can do some sort of like a personal branding or showcase what you have done, like what you are capable of. So I presume that would be a good start. And I hope I answered your question.
You did. My concern is that I personally know how to go about doing this. I'm asking these questions on behalf of the audience as well, because sometimes you cannot ask the question if you are not exposed to the system, right? So these are my personal experiences, because I know there. And again, Slintech has a place where people can go and find out such information, like this membership. Now when you say membership, you can become a member of such and such things. I know what you mean, but how can our young members and young engineers, etc., even the senior engineers will find that out? How do they know where to go?
So through Slintech, we don't do that sort of promotion, but maybe like I can probably pass on some information to Dr. Dulini later, and like
That would be great.
Yeah, we can like all of us together, we can probably explore those options.
Yeah, I think Dr. Angika, my parting thought will be, sorry if I'm not coming on camcorder because of the bandwidth issues. So generally, that's what I normally do. We have met each other. So the issue here in Sri Lanka that I see for the innovation, there's a lot of hunger now. People are coming out lately. I don't know, after the COVID or whatever, seems to be a lot of enthusiasm for innovations. The ecosystem is not in place. Those who do, I know multi-billionaires, US dollar millionaires here in Sri Lanka who have done innovations and become dollar millionaires. I personally know that they were there a long time ago. But in general, the space is not for the your typical graduate path engineers. If you are not going to the school, and if you're vagabonding or something like that, then you will end up with being a great entrepreneur. So our entrepreneurship is separate from the education arm. So that is what we need to bridge, because our talent pool is incredible. University talent pool is incredible. Even if you take 10 or 25% of them into entrepreneurship, the magic can happen. I know that for sure, because they do magic when they go abroad, because the ecosystem is there. So I think we all should get together and try to build that ecosystem. That is the missing, one of the key missing links. That's why I was asking about this rapid prototyping, websites, what do you call mentoring, etc. Do you have any mentoring programs, Dr. Angika? No,
yeah, so,
you know.
Through our Slintech Startup Engine program, we do have a mentoring session. And like say, if there's a specific area that any of you all are interested, like you can always give me a shout out, and I can like give you some reference to reach out to. And also like there are entities that we work closely. So those entities like incubators and accelerators in Sri Lanka, like they are not in the same scientific or engineering domain, but then again, like they work with a lot of people who are like who have done a marvelous job in terms of going through this entire entrepreneurial journey. So we can certainly link with them, and we can like put them touch in perhaps with the IESL, this particular body, and maybe like you all also can do some sort of a networking session for the for your community. So through that, probably like we can do something to the ecosystem as you suggested.
Thank you, Dr. Angika. Dr. Dulani, please make a note of this. We will talk offline. Thank you very much, Dr. Angika.
Okay,
Looks
thank
great
you very
behind
much.
our background. Huh? You have come with a black shirt and everything. That's fantastic. You look like a rock star. Thank you.
Thank you,
Cheers.
Engineer Arjuna. I have a quite rather long question that is been asked. So let me read that to you, Dr. Angika. Maybe I should summarize it. So what they're asking is, when an invention is patented for preserving intellectual property rights, these documented details of the innovations are publicly accessible. So in a competitive industry, how could an emerging company successfully penetrate and survive when they put these intellectual property details out publicly? So that's the question.
Yeah, usually when you have this broad term as intellectual property, so it entails a lot of things. So patent is one of the aspects. So if you have a patent, so like you have some sort of a legal boundary to the innovation that you have come up with. But there's another avenue which is called the trade secret. So you may all have heard of the Coca-Cola story. So Coca-Cola has the most long lasting trade secret because no one knows that recipe. So they have put like multiple layers to prevent that trade secret diffusing away from where it is. So that's so like say if you are to go down that route, like say if you think that having this uh, patent in the public domain, and if that's going to affect your business, so the best way is to keep it as a trade secret. But then you have to ensure, like when you keep it as a trade secret, it's very hard to reverse engineer. So I know like most of the times even at Slimtech we usually do that. So because patenting process itself is very expensive, and also like once you go through the patenting process, like say if even though if you have a patent in Sri Lanka, that doesn't mean that your technology is protected in the US or wherever. So then like in order to get that protection, then you have to have a patent filed in US and all other countries that you intend to go to. Then in that aspect, if you think in that manner, yes, it's a very expensive process. So because of that, like if you think, okay, Harry, not going for a patent, and like if you protect your invention as a trade secret, and if you can function, so that's fantastic. But most of the times when you have a trade secret, that will probably last for about like maximum 3 to 5 years. So those are the like pros and cons. But having said that, the best example is Coca-Cola, which had lasted long for, I don't know, probably more than 50, 60 years, more than 100, probably nearly 100 years.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Angika. There's another question that is, what is the degree of details uh, what is the degree of details that the venture capital expect to get interested in certain invention?
So it depends, like it depends, but when you go and pitch your idea to VC firms or angel investors, they look at a lot of attributes. But one of the main attributes that they look at is your team composition. So they, first of all, like your technology has to be a proper validated technology. It has to be like a working prototype. And the next thing that they look at is your team composition. So if you are just an inventor, and if you have a very good track record in engineering or scientific areas, and if you go and pitch saying that I'm the only person who's going to take this technology to the next level, then they may not like you, because not because of anything else, because they may not think like you have enough substances to take your technology to the next level, because you don't simply have the marketing expertise. So it's always good to have people with different skill sets in your startup, because that's why like most of the times if you look at co-founders of startups, one co-founder is like a CTO sort of a person with technical know-how, the other person is with a market background, not marketing in the sense like having a marketing degree, with a person with a skill set to do marketing. So So that's in terms of the attributes, but in terms of the technology readiness level, I think that's something that probably probably you wanted to clarify. In terms of the technology readiness level, they look at a mature technology. Like say, if you go and pitch a concept, the chances of you getting funding is not that high. But if you go and show them some sort of a working prototype or even like a scaled up invention, the chances of getting funding is really, really high.
Right. So I think that was answered. The next question is, through SlimTech, is it possible to get solutions for industry problems using nanotechnology?
So through SlimTech, yes. So that's like our bread and butter. So at SlimTech, what we do is like we do contract research for companies in Sri Lanka. So usually they come up with an industrial problem that they have. Then our scientists look into that, and then they will try to come up with a solution. So once we come up with a solution, so usually our standard typical model is like we come up with some sort of a scientific innovation, and we usually keep that intellectual property with us. So once we come up with a successful solution, then we uh, do the technology transfer to that company in terms of like licensing or whatever an appropriate model. So yes, through nanotechnology we can gain certain industrial solutions.
Yes, I think Engineer Arjuna Manamperi has raised hands. You can ask any questions you have.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Dilumini. Dr. Rangika, now I don't want you to give me a stock answer for this one. Now when you watch movies on entrepreneurship, the modern movies like how the companies became top IT companies and etc., the fable stories about Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, etc. In the early stages, this pitching, what you use the term pitching, that is pitching your idea. It's a very key factor. I mean, stories are made, movies are made, and books are written about that. How critical is pitching, ability to communicate clearly? And obviously, we'll have to communicate in English if we are going to the overseas markets, but locally also, the money people are more, they understand English better than their own mother tongue. So how critical is this pitching business?
So I think if you have to raise funding, pitching is like the most important part. It should be like your top priority. And like that's as I said, like say if there are like certain communication issues and all, so it's always better to have good teammates in your company or in your team. So who can do that pitching on behalf of the inventor. So usually when you come up with a startup company and when you go and pitch, they look at two things. They look at the uh, enthusiasm that the inventors have, and also obviously the technology readiness level, and also like they want to see that the people who are with you are willing to go that extra mile, and whether they are willing to go to the uh, end of the uh, tunnel to achieve the things that they want. So when it comes to that aspect, it's apart from communication, like you should have all sort of other people. So that's one of the key factors. Like even like say now, as I said, you can pitch at different stages to raise funding. So like say if it's at a pre-stage level, so you may not have you may not have another founder in your company. So you could be the only founder. But then again, like say if you think that you are not good enough in expressing your ideas, that you are not pitching it to investors, then it's always better to partner with someone who knows that domain. So then that partnership will actually take you to a next level. Because if you think in a very concise way, and if you think, okay, I can do everything because I am the inventor, so that might not be the correct pathway. So okay, if you have all the talents, if you have all the skills, that's very good. But then again, like say most of the times, if you look at most of the startups, like perhaps uh, like Elon Musk would be one of the exemptions, but then again, like if you look at most of the startups, they have partners. So it's in the entrepreneurship, it's considered as the yin and yang. So you should you may know the yin and yang symbol. So it's like that, like you should have like
Yes.
another to pull your weight up and go the extra mile.
Dr. Angika, you hit a very good point. So I have follow-up question. When I was in the Silicon Valley, some of you may have know what I'm talking about. That is in California. You get out to the streets of Valley during the 90s, during the dot-com boom. Everything was a happening place. In Sri Lanka, are there enclaves? The word is enclaves. Are there at least small places where people can hang out and meet people, similar people, find their innovation partners, and etc.? Are there places like that?
There are. So like not up to the Silicon Valley standard, but then again, like there are certain incubators and accelerators. So they are trying to promote this culture in Sri Lanka. So it's relatively new, but there are, I'm not sure whether I can cite the names. So Dr. Dulli, like,
Why you keep hiding the names? We want to know the names because people don't
okay, so
know.
because I don't want to do like branding on behalf of other companies, so that's why I didn't want to tell. There are
But
companies like Hatch, if you take for example.
yes, Hatch. Yes, Hatch.
Is one of the places in Sri Lanka. Then Startup X Foundry. Then
Yes,
is a new concept called Startup Weekends or something. So those are the hangout spots for entrepreneurs to like get together, like have a drink and like
yes,
mingle with each other. So then like they exchange a lot of ideas. Like for example, place like co-working spaces like Hatch and all. Like they lot of entrepreneurs work together. So
yes.
then
Uh,
they exchange
yes.
ideas.
So last follow-up. When I say last, I'll never have finished my questioning. The next follow-up question is, Dr. Angika, assuming that you are a Sri Lankan education system scholar. I am not sure about your background. I can't remember. But why is it that our young engineers and young talented individuals try to do everything on their own? I'm not asking a very deep philosophical question, but I'm asking, this is very important what you're saying. This networking is a critical component of innovation and actually commercialization thing. So there's a significant problem there. So how can we break through from that?
In fact, network is your net worth. So I'm not sure whether it's a it's probably, I'm not sure whether it's something to do with the Sri Lankan education system or whatever. But like I have met a lot of people in Sri Lanka, so they have this attitude thinking that they should do everything on their own, and if they expose the technology to their partners might take this technology and run away from them, and like they might lose the opportunity. So there's a big fear factor among them, so that probably would have left to this. So but then again, like I don't know whether that can be correlated to the Sri Lankan education system or not, but it's something that I've seen in a lot of Sri Lankans. And fortunately, there are entities who's trying to uh, disrupt this sort of a thinking, and they are trying to do a lot of seminars to educate people, thinking that you should have great teams to take your technologies forward and so on. But like as I said earlier, so I started my entire session saying that entrepreneurship is not for everyone. So it's for people who's willing to take a leap of faith. So, so if you talk to 100 engineers or 100 scientists who came through the Sri Lankan education system, you might find one engineer or one scientist who would willing to do that. So, I believe like we might not be able to generalize that, but probably that could be like a that could be a cause for many societies, not only for the Sri Lankans. I might be wrong in this aspect, but that's what I feel.
No, you are not Dr. Angika, you are not wrong. This is an offline discussion we'll have to take with you. But I believe there are about 10 to 15% population in our graduate population, and the people who are graduating from universities who are actually truly hardcore entrepreneurs. The issue here that I see is that the ecosystem again, how to network, how to meet friends, how to meet like-minded people or complementary people. I think it's part and parcel of them, not the education system, the culture itself. But I think we need to break through that and disrupt that. And I think we like to continue to have a conversation with you. And Engineer Nagavatta, if you are there, I saw you online, Engineer Ruan Nagavatta. You need to talk to Dr. Angika about this. So we need to create a space like that, even at ISL. we'll take this offline, Dr. Angi. Let others ask questions.
Yeah,
Thank you
sure.
very much. Fantastic.
Okay, thank you very much, Engineer Arjuna. We have one more question, that is, there is a significant amount of work to do before you can be ready to do pitching, and may not have the partners needed to do this successfully. Is there any help that the inventor can get at this stage? I think this is more relevant in Sri Lankan context. So are there any help
Yes.
available for this kind of thing?
Yeah, certainly there are a lot of facilitators in Sri Lanka. So like even if you do a simple Google search for incubators or accelerators in Sri Lanka, so there are a lot of entities like that. So what they do is like they take you under their wing and they do like a lot of mentoring sessions to prepare you for those pitching sessions. So that's like a step-by-step guidance program that people have put together. But then again, like nothing comes for free. So if you go under one of these incubator programs or accelerator programs, like you might have to give away some sort of an equity for them, like a very minute amount from your startup company. So you shouldn't be like too greedy if you don't know what to do exactly. So in that particular case, so you can obviously partner with those sort of companies and maximize the benefits.
Yes, I think to add to that, from the context of universities, I think most of the universities, including where I work, University of the Faculty of Engineering, University of Sri Jayawardenepura, I think the same is available in other engineering faculties as well, like University of Moratuwa. We have these centers in the university where we provide this service to students who are willing to commercialize their products, both for students and staff who have inventions, and if they want to commercialize it, the university is directly giving legal help as well as coordination between industry partners. So there are systems emerging. They are not very established, but I think these days there's a trend even inside universities to commercialize products. Yes, Engineer Arjuna.
Dr. Dulani, I have a question for you, not to Dr. Angika. Now you just mentioned something that I even didn't know. I'm a very inquisitive guy. You say there are systems in the universities.
Yes.
Now it's interesting. I managed to get at least few names out of Dr. Angika. Now when we say these things online, we should be able to put the phone number and the contact information of the party. So where is in the Katubedda University or Sri Jayawardenepura University, who is the party to contact? So we need to, in the future, we need to pitch it. These are great opportunities to do that. And also, since you are working with an organized university that is close to IESL, my suggestion is to work with IESL to create this enclaves of idea guys coming together, guys and girls or whatever, coming together, because everything is like so secretive, or rather පිළිකන්නේ වගේ තමයි ඔක්කොම තියෙන්නේ. ඒක තමයි ප්‍රශ්නේ අපේ. ආඩම්බරයක් නැහැ කිසිම දෙයක් හංගගෙන වැඩ කරන්නේ. So next time when we do these things, I would like to see the phone number, contact person, website, all appearing on the screen. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Engineer Arjuna. When we probably when we publish these talks on YouTube, maybe we can put a description there. Yes, Engineer Parakrama, one of the senior engineers in the Mechanical Engineering Sectional Committee, is asking a question, I think.
Yeah, I really couldn't keep my trap shut because Arjuna, when you talked about this engineering design centers, this was done, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years ago. I was involved with them right at the beginning. But that connected to the question I posted, they're also saying that there's a need to let people know where these things are. Now, Randika come and tell us various places, but the type of people that to get to know Randika are very limited. Now, this is a gap to be filled. And also, unfortunately, what these EDCs have done, these total universities, IDB is one, NERD is one, like that, quite a few. It was done in the 70s or something like that, right? But that message must go through. In fact, that's another message I put in. I think it should have gone to Ruan. Whether at ESL or MASC, we should build up a database of all these places. The question that Arjun asked with the numbers, contact these things and all that. So we should provide, we don't do anything else other than just building up that database. Top of that will be Dulini's details will be there in that list, and Randika's for that matter. Now, there are a lot of people who need that information, they don't know where to go. And quite rightly, Randika said there are institutions who are supposed to do that. But they are not known. You see, if you talk about National Science Foundation, they work at, somewhere up in the stratosphere. They are not known by a lot of the people who need their help. So, but we'll have to do that bridging of that, which I've been trying to do this for a long time, not very successfully. But now that I see 40, 50 people are interested in this one, so I would like to see that happening. That's the biggest gap we have. You see, Randika, like you mentioned, get to that point. You see, now I know Hatch people also, they do some kind of this thing, but even the availability of a place like Hatch, how many people know? No, getting people to know that there are places like that. This is the most important thing that we need to do. So that is something that I think we have to take it on at MESC. Doesn't require much, just collecting information, and putting up on some kind of web or some other place where people can reach. Thank you. Thank you, Ranjika. Thank you. It's great listening to you.
Dr. Dulani, I jumped in without following your instructions because Parakrama got me to say one more thing. Thank you, Para. You are right. He visualized the whole thing. So I would like to address our chairman, Mechanical Engineering Section Committee, Engineer Lasantha Ekanayak, who is online. Lasantha, the directory hadala wadak naha, I will say it in Sinhala. The directory, the more useful directory will be this kind of a directory where the entrepreneurship is possible, networking is possible, rather than saying that I'm a mechanical engineer who can maintain air conditioners. We were talking about creating a directory. I think these are the kind of directories that will make people go places. So please take that into consideration. Thank you.
Yeah. Perhaps Dr. Dulni, maybe you can arrange another session, particularly on like networking, like you can probably bring in like a lot of stakeholders in terms of people who are doing these sort of incubators, accelerators, then like maybe the audience can directly engage with them.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly, Dr. Angika. Sorry. Go ahead, Dulani. I had the same thing.
Yes, I completely agree with Dr. Angika. Maybe for now we have several sessions. We have the MECCast and the MEC Talk series coming off from Mechanical Engineering Section Committee. So probably we will look into those companies that you mentioned, and we'll try to get them to do some sessions through these platforms.
I think Dr. Dulani, ideally will be we can take it offline. We can say tell Para, myself, and some Ruan and others. Rangika can tell a lot of companies in this space, this angel investors, incubators, and etc. So we can put them into a kind of a conference and have a 2 to 3 hours, 2-hour session or something like that on a weekend or something like that, and it should be marketed. Later I want to ask about how did you market this session? Okay. Because there are only about 47 or 58 people are there earlier. I think I have feeling that this was not fully marketed to the larger audience. I'm surprised. Because if we say we dana dena kiwana me 250 විතර එනවා.
This is also dana of a kind.
Right. Yes, we will look into ways of improving the number of participants we are getting for these kind of sessions in the future. So I don't see any more questions in the chat box, but there are several comments. One is they have appreciated having these kind of talks, and also they agree that there should be an online forum or communication platform for the inventors young inventors to get help. And also another person is mentioning that even in University of Ruhuna, the Faculty of Engineering, there's an entity for undergraduate entrepreneurs. So it is great if all these entities around in all the universities could merge together and do something more productive than doing their work individually. So I think which is a very good suggestion, but it's quite outside the scope of MESC, but we can of course have a discussion on this and try to do something.
It is well within the scope of the ISL. MESC can give the impetus to that. That is
Right.
exactly what we should do. IESL should have incubator, IESL should have venture capital fund, and IESL should have a network in place and a hangout place. All these are very possible, Dulani and the team. And it is very possible, and the timing is right. We can make it happen actually. So let's go accelerate the process and we can get there. I'm pretty sure we can do that. IESL is a place where we have a lot of money. Tell you the truth. So
Good
we
to
can do
hear
that.
Right. So I think we have almost spent an hour. So it's time to end the session if there are no more questions. So on behalf of the Mechanical Engineering Sectional Committee, I would really like to thank Dr. Angika De Silva for spending your valuable time with us, sharing your experience. I think it was very important. And also I would like to thank the engineer Arjuna Manamperi and all the others who have joined us today to make this session interesting and adding more value to our discussions. So ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time to end the session. So I hope all of you will have a good holiday tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Dr.
much.
Angika, thank you very much.
Thank-
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Dr.
Right.